on the underlying offenses is up to life in prison.
Yes, sir.
And that would be life in prison without parole. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Keese, is there a plea agreement?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, did you have an opportunity to review People's Exhibit number 1 with your attorneys?
Yes, sir.
And this is the plea form that covers all of your rights, sir?
Yes, sir.
That is 16-year-old Ethan Crumbley pleading guilty to all of the 24 charges facing him. I understand that you might not recognize the name Ethan Crumbley because America has so many school shooters that it's difficult to remember all of them. Actually, as we're recording this, apparently there was a shooting at a school in St. Louis where multiple people have died. But this was a particularly bad one, many people harmed, and it's also a case in which all of the warning signs were there. If any shooting could have been averted, this is probably that one, and yet it wasn't. So let's dive into it. Now, I guess it is good that he pleaded guilty. He will face life in prison. Bear in mind, back in November of 2021, he had a gun that he hid in his backpack. He pulled it out in the bathroom and began firing at any of his classmates that he could. His parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley, are also facing charges after allegedly aiding his access to firearms and ignoring warning signs before the attack. In the hearing, Crumbley said the gun that he used in the massacre was purchased by his dad. But that was not the only involvement of the parents in this. A teacher had, prior to the shooting, discovered a drawing with a gun pointing at the words, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." There was an image of a bullet with the message, "blood everywhere." They contacted the parents, and James and Jennifer Crumbley declined to take their son home on November 30th, the day before the shoot, or that was the day of the shooting. But were told to get him into counseling within 48 hours. A day before that, a teacher had seen Ethan searching for ammunition on his phone. The school contacted his mother, who told her son in a text message, "Lol, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught." That was within days of him attempting to kill as many of his classmates as possible. So he will spend probably the rest of his life in prison. That, of course, doesn't undo any of the damage of the shooting. But one would hope that maybe parents would take these sorts of warning signs a little bit more seriously with this back in the news as a reminder. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, and when we're talking about common sense gun reform, we could actually point to, I think one should be in cases like this where you have warning signs that, look, I don't even think these are invasions of privacy per se. We already have the standard for if you suspect there's domestic violence going on in the home and you're a teacher and you see signs of this, you have to report it to, there are systems for reporting that to school administration, to authorities. That this has to be included in that, and by not doing that, that should also be included in child negligence, because not only is it negligent to the health of this child who's now going to be spending the rest of his life behind bars because he did not get the counseling and mental health care that he so clearly needed and seemed to be asking for at a certain point, but it's also going to be negligent to all of the kids who he murdered, right? Like, we can't lose sight of that horrible tragedy that's here too. And so that's a common sense gun reform there. The idea that, and I also don't think that's that much of an invasion of privacy, as I was saying, because that always is a touchy thing that people try to point out and saying, hey, even on the left, even on leftist organizations that have been historically known to arm themselves, you don't want to set the precedent where there's any sort of surveillance into people with weapons, sure. But these are kids. Let's extract ourselves from society here. Again, we're the only country in the world where people can go to school and not come back because they were shot, and it's statistically higher than like 0.00001% to happen. That's ridiculous. We need to start doing some things about it, and I'll remind people, like guns safety advocates remind people, a lot of these reforms are common sense and popular even with conservatives.
Yep. A lot of these even with NRA members. It's just the craziest people are in charge. And bear in mind, so this 16-year-old was able to get a hold of a handgun. If he'd had an assault rifle, he would have done even more damage. And there are people in positions of power who think he should have been free to go buy one. If he'd been able to scratch together $1,000, $2,000, they think he should have been able to get better weaponry to prepare for his school shooting. And people who believe that are in positions of power, in states, in the federal government. It's a lot of fun living in America. Anyway, finally, we have a statement from lawyer Ben Johnson, who represents the families affected in this shooting, saying Ethan Crumbley's guilty plea is one small step forward on a long path towards obtaining full justice for our clients. We'll continue to fight until the truth is revealed about what went wrong leading up to this tragedy and who, including Crumbley's parents and multiple Oxford Community Schools employees, could have and should have prevented it. You can see a shot of him there. Also, randomly in the same 24-hour period, by the way, another former police officer has also pleaded guilty in the case of the death of George Floyd, and you can see 2 of the cops who've pleaded guilty there. There's been a very long, drawn-out process to get justice in that particular case as well, but a little bit today, a little bit.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.